Hello, in this video, I'm going to run through some cards that I would include if I was going to build a Miles Morales / Ultimate Spider-Man Commander deck. This also is applicable for Kren Undercity Dreamer and Kren of the Spider Brood if you're playing on Arena. Some of these cards are on Arena. First up, I want to go through a couple of Spider-Man, so I specifically Spider cards, because Ultimate Spider-Man's second ability cares about spiders and legendary creatures. So Spider-Man India has whenever you cast a creature spell, put a plus counter on your creature you control against flying until end of turn. And we want to put as many plus and counters on things that we can double with Ultimate Spider-Man's attack ability. Next is Spider-Man Miles Morales. Whenever it attacks or enters, you put a plus counter on each creature you control, and those creatures gain trample until end of turn. So whenever it attacks, you can put a count on everything, and then Ultimate Spider-Man's ability could trigger next and double those to 2, which is nice. Or if you already have counters, double for above that. And Arena, Heart of the Spider. Whenever you attack, the plus counter on target attacking creature. Whenever a modified creature you control deals combat damage to a player, exile top card of the library you can play at this turn. You're not playing blue, you need access to card draw, and the Heart of the Spider can do that. Of course, equipment, auras, and counters modifications, including plus counters. Now next, I'm going to get into my creatures, but first I want to say that Masquerade Nexus is great in this deck, because you can make all creatures spiders, and then every single time you attack, it doubles the number of all creatures. Since you can't play all spiders, this can make all of your creatures spiders that are in play, that are in the graveyard, that are in your library. So first up, I have Halana and Alana partners. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put X++ counters on another target creature you control, or X is its power, or X is their power, and then that creature gains haste till end of turn. This also wears +++ counters well, because that's first strike, just like Ultimate Spider-Man does. This wears ++ and counter really nice. Next is Sovereign Okinic Aho. For 4 mana, it's a 3/4. Whenever it attacks, for each creature you control with base power greater than its base power, put a counter on that creature is equal to the difference. So we care about that. Those ++ and counters would put more counters on it. Those ++ and counters are one of the ways that you can increase a creature's power above its base power. So the Sovereign's great in this deck. Orwin, Weaver of Hope, 3 mana, 2/1. Each other creature you control enters the battlefield with a number of ++ or counters on it equal to its toughness. So this wears counters well because it gets all of your other creatures that enter counters. So that's phenomenal. Kami of Wister Hopes wears counters well. Not only does it say when a counter's put on something, you get an additional one. So whenever you attack, you would double +1, which is nice. And then tap, you add X mana or X its power. So a lot of flexibility with Kami of Wister Hopes. It's very good. I also wanted to point out that you can play Miles Morales for 2, or Ultimate Spider-Man for 6, or you can transform Miles Morales into 6. So you have some options there, which is nice. Like you can play it on turn 2 and then transform it for 6 later, or play it on turn 6. Bright Palm Sol Awakener. Whenever this creature attacks, double the number of ++ counters on target creature. The creature can't be blocked this turn by creatures with power 2 or less. So it attacks, doubles counters on things if you have one creature wearing a lot of counters, and then can't be blocked by low creatures, which is nice. Hamza, Guardian of Arashin. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature you control with ++ counter on it, and then creature spells you cast cost 1 less for each creature as well with ++ counter on it. Since you're a ++ counter deck, this will get cheaper for the number of creatures you have. And Miles Morales enters and puts 2 counters on things, so it can be a 2/3 and put a ++ counter on something else if you played a 1-drop, which automatically drops Hazmat to 4 mana, which is nice. Rishkar is also great. When it enters, it puts 2 ++ counters on things, just like Miles Morales does. And then, but it gives the ability for those creatures to tap for green, so you can ramp into your more expensive Ultimate Spider-Man, or 6 mana is going to turn into 8. So it's going to get expensive 8, 10 if it dies more than once into twice. Twitching Doll is a spider itself. It taps to add mana, but you can sacrifice to create a 2/2 spider with reach counter on it. And it's important to note the Twitching Doll doesn't just care about the nest counters it puts on it. It's any kind of counter can turn into a spider, which then you can put counters on it and double their ++ counters. Nice. Have the Sovereign in here twice. Oops. Tifa, Martial Artist, 4 mana, 4/4 with melee. Whenever one or more creatures you control with power 7 or greater deal combat damage to a player, untap all creatures you control. And then if it's the first combat phase, you get additional 1. So the Ultimate Spider-Man, if you get a counter on him, you got 2 counters, double them, and then it can attack for free. But since you're putting so many ++ counters on things, you're probably going to have other creatures that are getting really big. So Tifa's great here because you're in Naya colors. Forgotten Ancient just gets counters on it constantly, and then you can move them around. So that's good. Lazel, if you would put one or more one or more counters of any kind. So it's plus counters, those nest counters we looked at, planeswalkers. Whenever one or more counters are put on a creature or planeswalker you control, or on yourself, put that many +1 of each of those kind of counters. So every single time you double the counters, you get double +1. Every time you put one counter on, you get 2 on that creature. So these are ways to keep getting multiple creatures. This is a legend, so is the last card, but this is a legend, so it works well. You can double the counters on it, but also being indestructible means it wears the counter super well. And then when the creatures, all of your creatures come at him and you can draw cards off of it. Duskshell Crawler and Abzan Falconer each give either trample or fly respectively to creatures you control with +1/+1 counters. And those are 2 great abilities to have on all these creatures you're making bigger and bigger. Archaeogenesis. Instant, create X 1/2 green spider creature tokens with reach, where X is the number of creatures attacking you. And then you prevent all combat damage to be dealt this turn by non-spider creatures. So your opponent's probably not going to attack you with spiders. You can make a bunch of spiders, put +1 counters on them. This works really well with Cactus Crusade that's going to come up later in the list, but this is just a great card. Silk Guard. For green X, you put X +1 counters on, put a +1 counter on up to X target creatures. And then Ura's equipment and modified creatures you control gain hexproof until end of turn. So all of the creatures +1/+1 counters get hexproof. And you can put counters on a bunch of things. Akrama's Will. If you control your commander, you do both. Creatures you control gain flying, vigilance, and double strike until end of turn. Or creatures you control gain lifelink, indestructible, and protection from all creatures until end of turn. Either way, having all these creatures with +1/+1 counters on them, have double strike is phenomenal. Have flying is great. Have vigilance, that means they're blockers. Or you get lifelink, which is super good with these +1/+1 counters. Indestructible, which is great. And then protection, which means they also can be blocked because protection follows the dead rule. They can be damaged, destroyed, enchanted, equipped, blocked, or targeted by. And if you just have both, your creatures gain flying, vigilance, death, double strike, lifelink, indestructible, and protection from all colors. So they're unblockable. It's just enough. Inspiring Call, draw a card for each creature, draw +1 counter on it. Those creatures get indestructible. If you're not playing blue, you need access to card draw. Inspiring Call is a great way to do it. Thanes of Colonia? Man, there's a lot of weird names. Put a +1 counter on target creature you control, then double the number of +1 counters on each creature that had a +1 counter put on this way. So either you put a +1 counter on something and you double the number of counters on it, or you pay 6 and put a +1 counter and then double all of your creatures, which is great. Gambling Verdict is a great destroy spell on this deck because you destroy all creatures with no counters on them. All of your creatures have counters. Even Miles Morales, when you play it, can put a +1 counter on itself. So, I mean, you can transform it and it keeps the counter. So all your creatures are going to have counters on them constantly. Urza's Ruinous Blast exiles all non-landed permanents that aren't legendary. Little suspicious because we do play a lot of enchantments, or at least I would play a lot of enchantments in this build. So it's a little suspicious, but overall I think it's very on theme. You care about spiders, and you care about legendary creatures. The Earth Crystal. If one or more +1 counters you put on a creature you control, twice that many are put on set. So Miles Morales enters and puts a +1 counter on 2 Thanes. They both get 2 counters. And it makes all of your green spells cheaper, and it has the ability to pay 6 to distribute counters on things. So if you just don't have a lot of counters moving, the Earth Crystal can take care of that. The Ozolith. Whenever a creature you control leaves the battlefield, if it had counters on it, put those counters on this artifact, the Ozolith. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if it has counters on you, move all counters from it onto target creature. So your creature's dying, counters move on to this, and then at the end of turn, well, at the beginning of combat, you move all those counters onto something to make it huge. The Ozolith Shattered Spire just puts extra +1/+1 counters on things when +1/+1 counters are put on things, and you can pay 2 to put a +1 counter on something, which really means you get 2 +1/+1 counters. So it is both an enabler and a payoff, which is great. Power Fist is an equipment. Equipped creature has trample, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, put that many +1/+1 counters on it. So it essentially doubles the counters after you double the counters after attacking, if it all deals damage, and it has trample, so a lot of it's going to trample over, which is just really nice in a deck that cares about giving trample, doubling the number of counters. Just a great card. Sphere Grid is 2 mana. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you put +1 counter on it. And then creatures you control with plus encounters only have trample and reach. Phenomenal card, super strong. Plus, super on theme for spiders just to have reach. Before the Spider-Man set, it was just normal. And he joins up, copies the triggered ability of things, and is removal when it enters, dealing 5 damage. Whenever you attack, whenever, if, and when are all triggered abilities. So you would get to double and then double again. And then all of your other legends, like Toski, that cares about drawing cards whenever something deals counter damage, that would be double as well. Uncivil Unrest, non-token creatures you control have Riot. So they can either enter with plus counter, or they can have haste. And if a creature you control with a plus counter on it will deal damage, it deals double that damage instead. So now you're doubling the kind of counters, and then you're doubling the damage, which is fun. Hardened Scales, all of these instances where you just put one plus counter on something becomes 2 counters. 2 becomes 3. Doubling becomes doubles plus 1. All of the same plus 1. So Hardened Scales is great. Terra Symbiosis is a way to draw cards. Whenever one or more plus counters are put on a creature you control, you may draw that many cards. You only do it once each turn, but you can also do it on your opponent's turn. So Camouflage on Ultimate Spider-Man says 2, put a plus counter on it, and it attacks group and becomes colorless until end of turn. You can, on your opponent's turn, pay 2, give it hexproof, and draw a card. So that's good. Branching Evolution, whenever a plus counter put on something, twice that many instead. So whenever you would double and go from 3 to 6, it really goes from 3, double that to 6. So that's also great in this deck. Rhythm of the Wild, same thing, let's give them Riot. They can either enter with plus encounters, or if they already have a way to enter so that they can be doubled, you give them haste and immediately attack with them. And then your spells not being able to be countered is just value on top. Innkeeper's Talent, it's 2 mana, and then you can level it up. At the beginning of combat of your turn, put a plus counter on target creature you control. So you can put those counters so that they can attack, so that they can double. Because you got to have enablers and you have to have payoffs. You actually have to put cards in your deck that put counters on things for your cards to double or put an extra one on. 1 green, permanents you control with counters only have ward 1. It is super easy just to have 1 green lying around and just give all of your things ward 1, which surprisingly makes a lot of decisions just a little bit more difficult because now they can't double spell in the same turn if they want to destroy something you have. And then for 4 mana, if you would put 1 or more counters on a permanent or player, put twice that many instead. So you double and you would get twice that many. So that's just great. All be 1 whenever you put 1 or more counters on a permanent or player, including your creatures that you're doubling. All be 1 deals damage to target opponent, creature opponent controls, or planeswalker opponent controls. So you would get to deal damage every single time you're doubling counters or putting counters on things or just things are happening. Loading Zone. If 1 or more counters we put on a creature, spacecraft, or planet you control, twice that many are put instead. So if you don't have the 4 mana for this, you can just warp it into play for 1 green and then attack, double the counters, put twice that many instead, and then just go to exile and you can play it again later. So it's basically a sorcery that sticks around for the turn, and then later you can cast it for full value. So this is great with this deck because you're probably going to have a little extra mana laying around. Doubling Season, doubles tokens entering, and doubles counters on things. Guardian Project, we're not playing blue, we need a lot of ways to draw. Every creature that's a non-token in our deck will have a different name. So you can just draw a card every time you play a creature. Belladar Retreat can either give you tokens to put counters on, or you can put a counters on things and then give them Vigilance. I think people underestimate how good Vigilance is in Commander. Being able to attack and prevent your opponents from being able to attack you because you now have blockers up is really strong, and I don't think enough people really think about it. Court of Garenbrig, 3 mana enchantment. When it enters, you become the Monarch. At the beginning of your upkeep, distribute 2 plus encounters among 2 target creatures. Then, if you're the Monarch, you double the number of plus counters on each creature you control. So there's just another way to get counters in play. Introduces the Monarch to the game, and can double counters if you keep the Monarchy. Cathar's Crusade is a phenomenal card. Every single time something enters, everything gets a plus counter. Windcrag Siege. We really care about that first ability, Mardu. You're going to choose a Mardu most of the time. For creature attack and cost triggered ability of permanent control to trigger. That ability triggers additional time. So Ultimate Spider-Man triggers itself whenever you attack. And it actually, Ultimate Spider-Man, I just realized, doesn't even have to attack. It's just whenever you attack. So you can attack with a different creature than Ultimate Spider-Man and get that doubling effect. That is, wow. That's good. And Jessica, if you gain your upkeep, you get a 1/1. It gains lifelink and haste until end of turn. Lifelink creatures wear plus counter as well, but really we're going to want Mardu because we can copy that triggered ability of doubling things. Invigorating Hot Spring, 1 red and a green. When it enters with 4 counters. Modified creatures you control have haste. You can remove a counter from it to put a plus counter on target creature you control. Only the sorcery only once per turn. But you need to have counters on things for those counters to be doubled, and this is just a way to have those things doubled. Gravity Township, this is a land that can put a ++ count each creature you control, so it gives you some flexibility. Now, I will say you are playing 3 colors, but you are playing green, so you're probably going to have pretty good fixing. But, typically you don't want to take too many colorless lands in a 3-color deck, but Tarn's Bastion is just a phenomenal card. 4-tap Proliferate. I could have included more Proliferate cards in this list. Proliferate is going to be great because you're going to try to put ++ counters on all of your creatures. And this is just a way in your mana base to do that. A little dorky, because I feel like everyone who's building a commander deck video right now is telling you to play Swarmlord if you're playing spiders, but regenerating your spiders is great, because instead of destroying them, you tap or remove from combat, heal the damage, and it keeps the ++ encounters that you worked on doubling over and over again. Nesting Grounds, this is the same logic as you need to move the counters around. If you have a creature with 5 counters and a creature with 1 counter, moving that creature from the 5 to the 1 is worth a lot. If you have something on a 5 and a 0, moving one of those 5 to the 0 is phenomenal because it triggers your hardened scales, and that 1 can become 2. And all of those things can be doubled from there. Or in Reef the Vastwood, it is tapped, so it's like a little suspicious. But you can tap to put a ++ counter on each green creature that entered the battlefield this turn. And both of your commander options, whether it's Miles Morales or the Ultimate Spider-Man, are both green, which is great. And Llanowar Reborn, especially if you're playing Proliferate, this is great. Gasps 1. This land enters the counter on it. Whenever a creature enters, you remove a counter from this land onto it. If you do a lot of proliferating, then Llanowar Reborn you can proliferate those counters up and then move them off with still having countering on it, so you could take advantage of it more than just one time. And those are all the cards that I would add to a deck if I was going to build Miles Morales or the Ultimate Spider-Man. You let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I hope you have a good rest of your day, and may your top decks be ever in your favor. Thank you.